What's up, everybody? I'm Aslan Hajavandi, joined by Gene Williams, founder and administrator of Warchant.com, managing editor Irish O'Fell, and senior lead writer Corey Clark for this edition of Warchant TV. If you're not a member of Warchant.com, it's the ultimate Semel sports source. You're missing out. So use that promo code Warchant30 for 30 free days of access to Warchant.com. Now, one of the biggest topics that's been burning up over on the Tribal Council, which is available for our premium members, is the developing news from the NCAA in terms of name, image, and likeness, NIL, not to be confused with your NLI. It's probably the most divisive issue right now on the forums in terms of what it means for the future of college football, whether it's a fair and just system or if it's just going to be plain crazy. Gene, you've been keeping tabs, obviously, on the finance of college football when it comes to coaches' salaries, TV contracts, things like that. We usually don't talk about players and their compensation. Well, this is going to be a form of it in addition to what they already get with their scholarships. I think you might be on one of the polls when it comes to arguing in pro or favor of this. But what was your reaction when you heard that it's probably pretty much going through motion here, that the NCAA is going to allow players to receive endorsements and marketing deals?
I'll play the role of the old man, get off my lawn. That's kind of what I'm doing here. So yeah, I'm gonna play that role, which is fine. I do it well. I can't stand it. It's an awful decision in my mind. I mean, it's one of the worst things the NCAA has ever done, and that's saying something for that group. A couple problems I have with it is, I guess, first of all, it's going to benefit such a small percentage of the overall student athletes. I mean, a handful of football players, a couple basketball players, maybe baseball players. 90+% of the people are never going to see squat from this. And the people making the money from it are the ones who are probably going to go on and sign a pro contract anyway and make millions that way. So I don't really get a fundamental issue there. Plus the fact, I think I can't stand the whole thing. Well, student athletes don't get anything. You know what the value of a Florida State by itself, an in-state right now for 4 years scholarship, just room, board, housing, scholarship, all that's worth about $100,000. And Forbes did a study in 2013, putting the value with, you throw in the professional training, the medical, strength and conditioning, access to all that stuff. It's anywhere from then $50,000 to $125,000 per year. And that was then. So it's probably more. So you're talking up to maybe $500,000 value of getting a free education, all the benefits that come with it. But that's not even the biggest problem I have with this whole thing. It is the fact that the potential for abuses are through the roof. If you're a high school recruit, or if they, heaven forbid, if they pass this 1-year transfer rule, and it sounds like it may be a little dicey now, maybe it won't pass. But if the Florida Pig Farmers Association is giving $80,000 to its top players, and Corner Pocket Bar and Grill is doing $20,000 for Florida State players, you're going to get another $60,000. Every single star player is going, I'm packing my bags going to Gainesville. They don't care. It's a good, say what you want. It's a good university. They're going to get a good education. They're going to get well trained in football. Why would they stay at Florida State? So what's going to happen? You're going to have the have and the have-nots. It's going to get even worse if this thing goes through. So whoever has the biggest endorsement deals is going to have an all-star team.
No, Gene, they're supposed to part of the restrictions is the money can't come from the schools. So there's nothing to worry about.
We all know the NCAA, how well they are in enforcement. They don't even have the manpower. Even if they wanted to do this, they don't have any legal powers to subpoena. They can't do anything legally. They don't have the manpower. And you know how easy it is for a business to be in an LLC or an S Corp? You don't know who the owners are and what they're doing. The NCAA can't find that out. So it's meaningless. It's words on paper. It means nothing in practice.
Are you trying to tell me, Gene, that you think these college football players are going to start making exorbitant amounts of money to play college football? And that doesn't already happen?
No, not to this degree, when you can just go ahead and somebody's going to cut you a check to go play for a certain school. Well, they're not going to say that and whatever. But, if running backs in Florida are making this much in endorsement deals and you're making half of that amount at your school, you know what the going rate is. You're going to go to that school.
But do you think, and this is just a hypothetical, if there's a 5-star recruit that's between LSU, Alabama, and Florida State, do you think some of them in the last 20 years, there's been some maybe bags dropped somewhere near the house? Or parents have gotten jobs, or parents have gotten to me, this has always been a problem. The haves have always had a lot of money. Alabama's always, every school in the SEC but Vanderbilt's been on probation for reasons like this. So now at least some of it is above board where the players aren't risking their own eligibility.
They're legitimizing the abuse. So now you can do it legally. You can go ahead and have the have and have nots for before.
But it's been happening anyway. My point would be
now it's open doors.
It hasn't been happening widespread. I mean, if you talk to people who work in compliance, And, Florida State used to have a compliance director, Bob Middix, who worked at the NCAA. May he rest in peace. He passed away a few years ago. But Bob Middix worked at the NCAA and infiltrated some scandals where players were getting paid back in the 80s when the old Southwest Conference and all those things, and Eric Dickerson and all the money that was flowing back then. And what I asked him one time, I said, man, like, all these players are not getting paid. I mean, I'm sure there are some, but there's not all. How do you, like, why are some get paid? Why not? It's not just the best players. Some of the best players don't take any money. And he said, basically, if it's going to happen, it's going to be because the player or the player's family or representatives make it clear that they need something, they want something. And then schools that are willing to do that will then go through back channels and make it happen. But it's not like they're just – I just don't want to represent it that we think all college athletes are getting paid in football.
No, but Gene already said it's only a finite amount of players that are in play for this anyway. And I do agree with that. I do think money is going to be reserved for, 50 players across the country?
The biggest money, but here it's going to – other guys will get some money. Other guys – I mean – a player like, a mid-level, a guy who maybe starts in basketball but is not the star player. I mean, you see it all the time. If you live in an NFL town, Corey, you live part of the time in Atlanta, you grew up in Atlanta, the Falcons punter will get endorsement deals. An offensive lineman who doesn't ever play will show up at a car dealership on a weekend, for an endorsement deal. So it's not like only the stars get anything. It's going to be more
right, but is that so? We think that's a bad thing that Emmett Rice could get $1,000 for repping corner pocket.
Hey, I didn't say
that.
What about
repping Warchant, Gene?
Well, yeah, hey, we're going to take advantage of it. We're on board. We'll do it above board if we can, if it's possible to do that. Sure, absolutely. But here, will one woman's athlete get a thing from this, or one Olympic sport athlete get a dime out of this?
Well,
I don't see.
FSU just had one that would have gotten plenty.
Well, one, yeah, every once in a while,
soccer.
one comes along, sure.
Yeah, she would have been. I mean, Lord, what would she have made just with her Instagram followers? Dana would have made, she had over 1 million Instagram followers.
Yeah, as far as the big picture goes, I guess the way I look at it, and I would like to, again, as the old guy on his lawn, like Gene, I mean, I would like to see college football maintain some of what it's had from a standpoint of not being so overtly, I guess not the haves and the have-nots, that whole debate. It would be nice to keep things the way they were, but it's also unjustifiable. I mean, you can't really justify the idea that the kids in any other program can get a job or make money except these kids in sports. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Gene, you were a lawyer in a previous life. I mean, how can they justify it legally that students in other areas of the school can do it, but not students that play sports?
No, I mean, I get what you're saying, the letter of the law, but this isn't an employment thing. You're signing a deal when you sign a scholarship. That's the arrangement. You can sign whatever you want, a contract. I mean, there's no God-given right to have that. So, I mean, you sign a deal, it's voluntary. Nobody's forcing you to do it. So, I mean, that's underlying it. You're getting compensated for what you're doing, and part of that is you don't retain your rights to do this. Now, this is pie in the sky. What I'd love to see him do is create a fund. If you want to do this, maybe you get some percentage, but tie it to graduation. So student athletes that graduate can then get this fund to help them get started in their lives, if they don't sign a professional contract. That I'd be in favor of. What I don't like is the individual that the star quarterback, the Tua Tagovailoa, is going to make a $200,000 endorsements, and 90+% of the rest of the population and the student athletes aren't making a dime. It reeks, and different colleges will have different levels of endorsements. It's just setting up for a nightmare.
Well, I like the thought of somebody like Dalvin Cook in 2015 or 16. Look, Tallahassee's a small town. We don't have pro sports. He was the biggest star in Tallahassee. And if he was, Ira brought up the Falcons and the Braves having these local commercials. Well, there isn't a bigger name in Tallahassee than Dalvin Cook. And what if he goes to Minnesota and tears up his knee, which he did, and doesn't ever come back? Well, those were earning moments where, look, he's not going to get rich. There aren't a bunch of Fortune 500 companies in Tallahassee, but he could make. I don't think that I won't really clutch my pearls if Dalvin Cook makes $50,000 a year when his head coach is making $5 million, and the AD is making $300,000 or $400,000. It's hard for me, that guy, and it's hard for me to just say, okay, well, well, he does get a free he gets a free education. Okay, man, sure, great. Now, he wasn't brought to school to pass. I mean, I don't want to be the pragmatist here, but he wasn't brought to school to get A's. He was brought to school to score touchdowns and make tons of money for the university, which he did.
Corey, how much does that training cost to train yourself for the NFL? You know, people pay for tuition at IMG. 99% of those kids that go to IMG are not on scholarship. You know what the annual tuition is? $68,000. Why? Because those parents are paying for professional training, academic tutors, all the other stuff these athletes that come to Florida State are getting for free. It's not just the tuition and the board. They're getting up to $500,000 in benefit when they sign that scholarship. So again, I know it seems unjust that a star player or two are not cashing on their name and likeness, and maybe something needs to be done with that, but some better bells or some checks need to be put in place for this.
Yeah. Well, I think you could do, don't you think you do like a fair market, like reasonable market, like a fair market for these? Like you can't have the Waltons. All of a sudden Arkansas, I do see the side of this where all of a sudden Arkansas could be like, hey, baby, we're going to have
everybody.
We're going to pay them $1 million a year to represent Walmart. And then you go on from there. But I think if the NCAA could put in some sort of reasonable market value, so then all the exploitation and all the I mean, again, they're still going to – some of these guys, you can't stop it. They're going to get – their families are going to get money, and they're going to get money. But the above-board money could be, say, you cap it at $100,000 for a Tallahassee commercial. Or
you're interfering with the free market then. I think that's the thing right now. And they've come out and said they don't want you messing with the government says you don't want to mess. It's a free market system. It should do it. And I agree with you. I mean, it's ridiculous what coaches and administrators are being paid. I mean, I would rather see legislation do something about that for the inequity rather than opening up Pandora's box. But even at that point, the guy that works for Microsoft doing code, making $60,000, well, what does that compare to Bill Gates that's making billions? I mean, it's the same. It's kind of how life works. It's the same thing with these players.
It's crazy to me that Willie Taggart's going to make $15 million.
No one's going to argue that.
Dalvin Cook made, even if you cash out his 3-year scholarship, he made 10% of that.
Well, the other problem, and it's not even in terms of like the idea of people trying to do something illegally, just the reality of the markets that all these teams are in is going to change what other schools are willing to do. Like Corey mentioned a cap. Okay, that's fine, have a cap. You're not going to need a cap in Pittsburgh. You're not going to need a cap in Boston. You're not going to need a cap in Atlanta. The colleges in those schools aren't going to make any money. Aslan, you worked at some of these SEC communities. You know how big, in Starkville or Dothan or Tuscaloosa
Oxford
or Auburn, Oxford.
Yeah.
I mean,
Birmingham, yeah.
it's a complete – I mean, the market's there. The college football player is the biggest thing in the world. But if you play at Georgia Tech or if you play at Pitt or BC, good luck. I mean, even if those teams are good, nobody cares.
So what's a business in Gainesville that will pay $250,000 for a kid to come to endorse them?
The Ford dealership doesn't have to be. It could be the Southeast Ford dealer, maybe a Bullgator or something, or he may have ties or whatever the deal is. It doesn't have to be just a local. I don't think there's any restriction on that.
Because
my point though is
we're talking about.
Yeah, no, but in college towns it means a lot to them, and it means a lot to their. But in those other cities, it doesn't mean anything.
No, I get what you're saying. Like Georgia Tech has, I mean, I don't know how many big, I mean, there's a ton of huge companies in Atlanta. Yeah. Delta, Coca-Cola, they're not going to get the Georgia Tech quarterback because why would they? They'll get Matt Ryan. But in a place like Tallahassee or Auburn or Clemson or Tuscaloosa or Baton Rouge, these are small communities. I don't know that they have a ton of I mean, yeah, they're dealerships, sure. But, I don't know that I think maybe we're thinking that it's just going to be a free-for-all where there's going to be dozens upon dozens of companies spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't see that in these small communities. I think you could pay whoever. I don't know why I keep coming to Emmett Rice. Emmett Rice, you need to have a big year, my man. You need to have a big year. There's money out there. But you could pay Emmett Rice $1,000 to just, I don't know, do something for Warchant. But he's not going to get rich, and I don't think that's going to be a game changer. Right? College towns.
Well, the other market is, and this is the times we live in, they're also going to be able to do it. Well, if this all passes, hasn't passed yet, but if it does pass, they would be able to do it for social media endorsements and things like that. So, it doesn't. So talk about tweeting, imagine if Jameis had been in college or, any of these guys. I mean, if Cam Newton had been in college and could tweet. Some of these quarterbacks at some of these schools, they're huge celebrities. That wouldn't affect everybody, but certainly that could be big money because now you're not talking about just the mom and pop store in town. It could be Coca-Cola.
Yeah. Again, though, I would counter by saying, the two of us have more followers than 95% of the Florida State football team.
They might change their approach.
That goes to my
the
point.
Players
it's a
won't,
very
though.
small
The players
percentage.
The popularity is still the popularity of the players. They're, obviously the DeAndre Francois and the James Blackman have more followers than us, but 90% of the football players on Florida State, it's not like, oh man, they can advertise now. Now we're going to start following them. Again, I just like Gene said at the beginning. I think a lot of it is you're talking about 5 to 10% of the football team that's even in play to make money that will change. I mean, Gene, you're a business owner, and we make money. We're rolling in money. What's the going? What would you pay? What would you pay who? Chubba Purdy for I don't know, a 6-month sponsorship or a couple.
That's a good. Now, if Chubba's the starter, see that's the thing. His value goes up.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
But we're talking local business. If I throw a couple grand here and there, you're right. I mean, that's the small potato stuff. I guess my bigger point is hypothetically, Jameis Winston. What would Crab Shack have paid him for a sponsorship? $100,000 a few years ago?
It's too soon. Too soon, Gene.
Publix. Publix. Yeah, there you go. I mean, but I'm not sure it's going to be limited to the mom and pops. I don't see why, especially the huge stars. The guys, the Heisman front runners at these major schools. Why aren't they? I mean, isn't a national, that's worth a lot of money going to throw $100,000 just like they do with the pro athletes? What's the difference going to be there? Some of these guys are just as visible, if not more than the guy at the Patriots or Tom Brady or whatever it is. Maybe not Tom Brady, but a lot of the NFL players.
Yeah. Well, the other problem you're going to have in a team is you already have players when they come in as a 5-star recruit or 4-star recruit, and they want to play early, and they're sitting behind somebody else for whatever reason. That's frustrating enough, and you have to deal with coaching that part of it. What if that kid says, man, you're costing me money. If I'm playing, if I'm starting, if I'm getting carries, I'm going to be making a lot of money here on the side, but if I'm sitting the bench, I'm not going to make anything. Now you got to deal with that aspect of it.
Well, more transfers. I think that's where it's scary if you combine it with the one-time transfer rule. If that actually passes, hopefully it does not. I mean, you're gonna see the Wild West transfers all over the place to get the best endorsement deals.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you two guys. Aslan, you can chime in if you like.
Yeah, man.
I'm absorbing all this. I'm absorbing all this. Things are changing in my mind.
I feel that the one-time transfer rule would be much worse for college football than this. Me personally. Again, I think the one-time transfer rule is the entire team. This, again, is maybe 5 or 6 guys that have legitimate earning value on a college football team. But don't y'all think the one-time transfer rule, and I know today they said it would I think they said that it would probably not pass, or they don't anticipate it passing. But to me, that's where it just becomes the absolute Wild West, and there's no continuity at all.
Well, if you want to talk about Ira's whole thing about this, it's an unjust system. Like either it's indefensible to not allow players to profit off their name, image, and likeness while coaches are making millions of dollars, or the regular student, can code, or like Gene was saying, some guy can code on the side as a undergrad and make a whole bunch of money. Well, then, I transferred to Florida State. I went to UCF out of high school. I mean, I left at the drop of a hat. So why can't a football player? Why can't an athlete? And athletes in every other sport, it seems like, at least the Olympic sports, can leave at the drop of a hat. Like, why do basketball and football folks need to wait? Now, I get that for the integrity of the sport, and I'm all about that. But if we're going to talk about indefensible positions and holding people back, I think like the one-time transfer thing is more of a layup for the students to get through than the whole name, image, and likeness compensation.
But Aslan, you've signed a contract. I mean, that's what they do when to sign a scholarship. I mean, a lot of employees, valued employees, sign non-competes or multi-year contracts. You can't just leave without that. I mean, it's the same thing with a student athlete. You're getting a huge benefit, as I outlined all the financial benefits you're getting from signing a scholarship. There has to be some downside when you sign that scholarship. It can't just be one-ended. And I agree, the colleges need to be tied into that too. I don't like when they just throw a guy to the wolves after 1 year if he doesn't pan out. But at the same point, why can that guy just leave at a drop of a hat with no downturn? The school's made a huge investment in this guy, maybe 2 or 3 years in recruiting, doing all this stuff, training for a year, and then he goes to your rival at a drop of a hat because he doesn't like that he didn't start the first game. To me, I agree with Corey. It's awful. Now, I think this is worse than he does, but I agree the one-time transfer is bad, if not worse, if that went through.
I get it, But again, going back to what the coaches are allowed to do, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well,
Jimbo was allowed to walk away and not pay a penny.
Yeah, that was a bad contract. And to Gene's point, like, number one, you could make these 4-year scholarships instead of 1-year scholarships.
Yeah.
That would help. I think you'd have more leg to stand on, more leg to stand on when you don't allow people to transfer. It's like, look, you signed a 4-year contract, or at least a 2-year contract. But yeah, man, I wasn't even saying that I think it's fair. I just think that would be worse for. I'm not saying that I think it's an awful rule or an unfair rule. I'm just saying I don't think it's. I think it would be awful for college football. I think it would be awful for all of us. Like, literally, why? And I saw this on the message boards. Why would Alabama ever have to recruit a high school kid again? You could literally go to every school in the country, find their one best player, and say, "Hey, do you want to come play for championships at Alabama?" They wouldn't have to go. They wouldn't have to go to a high school game on Friday nights ever. They could just get ready-made juniors and sophomores.
No, that's what the group of 5 schools will basically just be like the G League in basketball.
Exactly. You just pick and pluck.
Yeah, 100%. And it sounds like that may not happen. It may not happen at all, or at least not anytime soon. They may push it back and not decide next month, which was what a lot of people were expecting. But going back to the payment thing, the stipend or the name, image, and likeness. Again, I just think if players can profit from it, it might work out okay. I mean, like, I think we all worry about what it's going to be. Is there a chance it just kind of just becomes the new normal and everything's works out? I mean, like Corey said, it just changes some of the under the table payments to above the table. And maybe at the end of the day, it's not. I mean, I wonder if it's going to be as big a deal as we think it is.
Yeah, no, you may be right. I mean, we don't know. This is new territory, how it's going to play out. Maybe it goes relatively smoothly, but I guess my point is the downside is really freaking bad. If it goes wrong, with the way the NCAA is set up right now, if you do have the Alabamas and the Ohio States and all those guys throwing hundreds of thousands as endorsement deals to guys out, and it works out that way and nothing can be enforced, and it could ruin it could ruin everything in college football. I mean, that's the downside to me. The upside is, it works out okay, no big deal. But, man, if it goes bad, it's going to go really wrong.
Well, I think the point I made in the things we wrote is, like, you're still going to have the haves and the have-nots. I know, Gene, you talked about that earlier, but I'm guessing with this rule, Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Florida State, Texas, they're all going to be good. They're all going to be I don't think it changes that much about the top tier of college football.
Aren't you making the parity even worse, which has gotten bad, though, isn't it? I mean, one reason the NFL is so successful because they've got parity, but I think we've seen already college football getting wide. I mean, that parity is going away more and more every year. I think this is just going to exacerbate the problem.
Yeah, but I guess that was my point. It's already been exacerbated. Like, we're already here. You know what I mean? We're already here. This might exacerbate a little bit more, but we're talking a few degrees. It's still – I mean, how many teams start a season with a chance to win a national championship in college football?
Well, that's a problem.
Yeah, but it was a problem before this. So it's not like it was running smooth sailing and now all of a sudden we have this problem. Now at least Arkansas can get into the mix. I'm bullish on Arkansas now with the Walton money. Aren't they like 3 of the 5 richest people in the country? Where did let's go to school?
What I was just kind of pondering there is, somewhere like LSU, like, not only are you going to be able to get endorsements and marketing deals with businesses in Baton Rouge, but in New Orleans as well, because that's obviously a huge LSU sort of stronghold. If you go to UGA, not only are you marketable in Athens, I mean, you're marketable in Atlanta. I feel like if you're in Tallahassee, I don't know if you can market Marvin Wilson in Miami.
You can market in Jacksonville. And you can market a kid that's from Jacksonville to Jacksonville. Couldn't Marvin Wilson get something from Houston?
Not with an NFL team. I don't see it that far away.
I think Florida, we're not as married to the college game. And listen, we're really intensely passionate about it. But, Alabama, Tuscaloosa's got Birmingham to pull money from. Ole Miss has got Memphis and Oxford they can pull money from. I mean, we talk about Florida State's geographical disadvantage when it comes to packing the stadium because we're not close to any major metropolitan towns, and there's nothing really within 2 hours outside of Jacksonville. Well, you think about Athens and you think about Baton Rouge and you think about Alabama and you think about Tennessee. You got Nashville, not too far away from Knoxville. I just would imagine how many more. You talk about that pool sort of shrinking in terms of teams that can win national titles. Well, then it sort of becomes who's got the really fervent college town that's also kind of close to a big metropolitan city that's also very passionate about college football. But I started this thinking more along the lines of, Gene, I just thought this is just going to be the beginning of the end for college athletics. But I kind of come around to agreeing with you, Corey, in terms of Tua. Who knows what Tua got to leave Hawaii to come to Tuscaloosa? His family's got a house in like suburban Birmingham. Who knows if that was part of the arrangement? But yeah, I mean, a guy like Tua he'll be the guy that's going to get the endorsement deal. So just like he's getting more money, would that create further resentment than what he already gets when everybody in the locker room knows that he's the guy that's got the bag man dropping stuff out his front door? I don't know.
I've talked to a couple of former players about that, and what the point they make is that in the NFL, you have different salaries. Nobody's mad at this guy because he has a max deal and this guy doesn't have a max deal. Just they understand that that's kind of the part of the business. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. I think, at the end of the day, I really don't think they had any choice. And what's amazing about it is the Jay Billises of the world and some of the other people who have been advocating for this for a while aren't happy with the plan that's laid out as it is. I mean, they think it's not far enough. They think there should be no restrictions. They feel like it should be completely wide open to how much money guys can make. And so it's not like they just took what the NCAA is saying this week and said, okay, that looks perfect. They really want more. So this may not even be the end.
Oh, this is going to be – you're wrong, Art. This will be the end.
What do they want that's more? Like what is something capped that I'm not familiar with?
Yeah, I mean, there are restrictions. And, like, they can't wear their logos. Like, you can get Dalvin Cook to come to your car dealership, but he can't wear FSU gear. Things like
really?
that. Yeah.
What's he say? Hey, I'm Dalvin Cook from
Well, he can say you just can't wear the logo.
Well, no, you can't even – I don't think you can even, like, reference your school or conference
I'm not sure.
It's going to – it's like when ESPN talks about betting on pro football, they can't say the Giants game. They have to say New York versus Green Bay. They can't say Packers versus Giants, or at least when you look at Vegas bookies and stuff. So these players are going to be like, hey, I'm a running back from that from the capital city. Like if you're at Florida State, you're going to have to say I'm the star linebacker.
So Miami will have an advantage here because they can say they're from Miami, and there's nothing they can do about that.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, that's true. But nobody's going to buy it. Does anybody in Miami care about those?
Well, they have to have fans first, I guess.
Yeah,
so.
Can they name them? So that I don't think that'll be much of an issue.
All right, well, the debate rages on, not only with us, but over on warchant.com as well. Hop over to the Tribal Council if you're a member to get involved, share your opinion on things. And if you're not a member, again, use that promo code WARCHANT30 for 30 free days of access at the Ultimate Seminole Sports Source.
Can I suggest something real quick to Gene?
Absolutely, Corey.
Good, Corey.
Gene, we got to find – I'm talking about all of us. We're going to pool our money together. We're going to find the 4 best offensive tackles in the country. Okay. And we're going to give them that Warchant bump. I don't know how much it is yet. We got to see what the market value is. But we got to get some linemen here, man. So whatever it takes, boss man.
I'm thinking free e-cards to Garnet Gold. You think that might do it?
Yeah, that's all it takes. Yeah, a year subscription to Warchant, some Garnet Gold paraphernalia. That's all it takes.
Weigh over 280 pounds, e-cards, baby.
I have one suggestion for Aslan before we go.
Yes.
You need to, next time we do this, you need to get like graphics where Gene can actually be on his lawn, like raising his, like superimpose him on his yard, screaming.
Yeah, yelling at a cloud.